DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one framework, one philosophy, one approach, one mindset, one daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to unlearn bullshit. Yes, how to unlearn some bullshit that has been taught to you. Now, how do you know what of the things that you have learned are bullshit, and how do you know what's not? That's an important question. Before we unlearn it, we got to discern what's the bullshit and what's the good stuff, right? So before we get into that, let me inform everybody or remind you that I have a text message line where I want you to text me and tell me the best thing you got from today's masterclass, or ask me a question about something that I said here today, or tell me your favorite quote that you heard on today's episode. My number is 305-384-6894. Also at that text line, once you text me and get into my community, you're going to receive my daily motivation text, which I send every single morning. You'll get it straight to your phone every day once you join me there. Again, anything that you hear on this episode or any other episode of this show or anything else that you take in from me. I mean, I do a lot more than just this show. So anything you take in from me, you want to ask me about, and yes, that is me that will be replying to you. So you'll be able to communicate directly with me through that number. Again, 305-384-6894. The number is down below, also in the show notes. So today's topic, how to unlearn bullshit. Now, again, we got to be clear. Not everything that you know is bullshit, and just because somebody else tells you it's bullshit doesn't mean it's bullshit. Just because I tell you it's bullshit doesn't mean it's bullshit. So first of all, I want to refer you to episode 1431. The topic is discernment, your skill of perception and judgment. So you have to develop the skill of discernment in knowing, all right, how do you realize that something that you thought was true for the last 10 years was actually some bullshit, or something that your parents taught you was some bullshit, or something that you learned in school was some bullshit, or something that you on your own came up with, but now that you got to think about it and you got some more experiences in life and thus a different perspective, you realize that what you thought was true was actually some bullshit. I promise you that you right now today, no matter how smart you are, how successful you consider yourself to be, you have some bullshit that has either been given to you in your life or that you have picked up on your own. Maybe you know that it's some bullshit, and you're trying to figure out what, why, where, who, what, where, why, and how it's some bullshit. Maybe you got some bullshit in your mind right now that you don't even know it's some bullshit, and it might be 2 years before you figure it out. But what I'm gonna do here today is I'm gonna plant some seeds in your mind that will help you to start identifying and thus subsequently getting rid of the bullshit. Because I'm gonna assume that since you're a person who's aiming for success, you wouldn't be listening to a show called Work on Your Game if you weren't aiming for success. So I'm going to assume that once you identify that there's some bullshit in your mind, you're going to do something about it. Okay, I'm just going to make that assumption. Now, if I'm wrong, then you can text me and let me know that I'm wrong. But if I'm right, then this is going to help you at least. Again, we can put this in your head right now, even if you don't use it right now, but maybe you will based on what you hear today. So let's get right into our points. The topic, once again, is how to unlearn bullshit. Anything that I say here today, I'll think of some examples. I'll give you some examples from my own life, as I always do, as we get into these points. Point number one, again, how to unlearn bullshit. Here's the discipline that you need to develop in order to unlearn the bullshit. When a verifiable, contradictory truth or question smacks you in the face, you have to stop and ask yourself a question. Let me say it again before I even tell you what the question is you're going to ask yourself, because I want to make sure you understand this is the discipline that you must develop. Okay, it's not always fun, and this can be a very big red pill for you to swallow. The red pill being paraphrasing from the Matrix movie. Red pill being, all right, you swallow this pill, now you're going to know the truth of everything, even if that truth happens to go against everything that you believed up to this point. A lot of people aren't interested in red pills, or they'll take a red pill, but then they'll just act like it wasn't a red pill and they'll try to regurgitate it. So here's the discipline. When a verifiable, contradictory truth or question, and contradictory meaning contradicting what you thought was true, when it smacks you in the face, someone asks you a question that seems to challenge everything you thought you knew, or some idea or some information that is verified smacks the face of what you thought was true, you got to ask yourself the following question. Where did I get my original belief? Now, I'm pausing here because I want this one to sink in. And I want you to really hold this one, because this is the key to unlearning your bullshit. And sometimes in life, just like in yesterday's episode, I told you that what makes a person interesting is that they're always learning new things. Understand that learning new things doesn't mean you always have to be adding to what's in your brain. Sometimes learning new things might be subtracting some of the bullshit that was already in your brain that you thought was true, but now you're realizing it wasn't. That's part of learning as well, is getting rid of stuff. Sometimes in life you add by subtraction. Addition by subtraction is getting rid of the bullshit. So it's not just adding on all the time. Usually, when you ask yourself that question, where did I get my original belief? Usually the answer is you didn't get it from anywhere, other than maybe it's what the adults around you when you were growing up, maybe your parents, your teachers, your coaches, your older siblings, maybe is what they believed, so you just adopted it because they were around and you respected them and they were the people who were bringing you up. So you just adopted their beliefs. And many of us, most of our beliefs that we have in our mind to this day are things that were given to us by the adults around us. And where did they get the beliefs? We don't know, because we never asked them. We just know that that's what our parents thought, that's what our coaches thought, that's what our teachers thought. So we adopted what they believed, and they told it to us as if it must be absolute truth. We never questioned it. We've grown up into adults, and now we are going around thinking those things and don't even understand it. We never actually verified the things that they told us. And understanding, if you become mature enough and you develop the skill of discernment, that even though your parents meant well and they loved you and your teachers were well-intentioned, doesn't mean that they're geniuses, and it doesn't mean that they didn't have some bullshit in their own heads that they passed on to you. And now you're realizing, damn, maybe my parents weren't geniuses who knew everything, even though they acted like it. Maybe my teachers, though well-intentioned, maybe everything that they told me was not necessarily true. And hey, maybe, just maybe, some of the things that my parents and teachers and coaches believed 30 years ago ain't true anymore, because the world is different now than it was then. How about that? But you must have the discipline to ask yourself the question, where did I get my original belief? When you ask yourself that question, if you realize that where you got your original belief is something as simple as, well, it's just what everyone else around me thought, or is what everybody else around me was saying or doing, that should be, if you have the discipline and the skill of discernment, should be a big flashing red sign to you telling you, hey, maybe I can replace this belief with something else, because this one wasn't based on anything solid in the first place. This wasn't based on anything of substance. It was just what everybody else was doing, so I was just going along to get along. Doesn't make something true. I'll tell you a quick anecdote. There was this man and woman who were in their home, and the woman is making a Christmas ham. So she's about to put the ham in the oven, and before she puts the ham in the oven, she cuts off both ends of the ham. So she cuts off the far end, and then she cuts off the other end of the ham, and then she puts it in the oven. Now the husband is watching her cut off the ends of the ham, and this is ham that is edible. The part that she cut off is an edible part of it. So it's not like she's cutting off the fat or something like that. And the husband says to the wife, well, wait a minute, why are you cutting off the ends of the ham? I mean, we could eat that too. Why don't you cook all of it? And the woman says, well, I'm cutting off the ends of the ham because my mom, when I was growing up and she would make ham, she always cut off the ends of the ham. And the husband's looking at her like, well, that doesn't quite make sense. Why did she do it? And the woman says, you know what? I don't know. And then these are adults. I don't know. And this stuff happens with all of us all the time, but we don't think about it. So the husband says, well, why don't we call your mom and let's find out why she did it. So they call the mom, and the woman asked mom, hey, why I'm making the ham and I'm cutting off the ends of the ham because you always did it. Why did you always cut off the ends of the ham? I never thought to ask, but can you tell me why? Because my husband's asking me why I'm cutting off the end of the ham. And the mom says, well, I always cut off the ends of the ham because my mom always cut off the ends of the ham. So now we got a whole whodunit here. Now we got a mystery to solve. So now they get the grandma on the phone. So now mom calls grandma and says, Grandma, my mom tells me that you always cut off the ends of the ham when you made ham back in the days. Now I'm cutting off the ends of the ham today. My husband asked me why I'm cutting off the ends of the ham. why did you cut off the ends of the ham? And grandma says, I always cut off the ends of the ham because my stove was too small, and otherwise the ham wouldn't have fit in there had I put the whole thing in there. That's why I cut off the ends of the ham. Now I'm out of the story now. What the woman and husband realized was that there was a functional reason why the grandma was doing it, but the mom just followed what grandma did without questioning it. And then this youngest woman with the husband, she was following what her mom did without questioning it, without the woman and her mom realizing that they were just following something that functionally didn't matter to them anymore. It was not applicable to them anymore. They had a pretty big oven. They didn't need to cut off the ends of the ham. Their oven could fit the entire ham. They didn't have grandma's problem. But they were following it because they never questioned what they've been doing. Now, all of you, again, think of times in your life, or maybe there are times that are still to this day, that you're doing things that you saw other people around you do, people who you know, like, trust, love, and respect. They were doing certain things, or they believed certain things and said certain things, and you don't even know why. But because you know, love, trust, and respect them, you just followed it. But does it still apply to you? It was about, I remember Anna and I were early in our relationship, and I was sitting at the kitchen table eating a meal. And I was almost done with food, and there were a few morsels of food left on the plate, and I was taking my time finishing the food. I didn't really want to finish it, but I'm trying to finish the food. And Anna notices that I'm struggling to finish eating the rest of this food that's on the plate. And she says to me, "Hey, are you done eating?" And I said, "Well, no." And she says, "Well, it looks like you're full because you're kind of like, it looks like you're kind of forcing yourself to finish eating the rest of this food. Why? What's up?" And I said, "Well, I had to finish eating the rest of the food." And she says, "Well, if you're full, why do you have to finish eating the rest of the food?" And I said to her, and I was not joking, I said, "Well, look, there are people out in the world who don't have food. There are people who are starving right now. There are people who don't have a meal to eat. So since I do have a meal to eat, I need to eat all of my food." And Anna smacked me in the face with a red pill when she said the following. She said, "Well, you eating those last 2 spoonfuls of food is not going to feed a starving person." And mind you, I was over the age of 30 when she said this to me. And it was the first time it had actually dawned on me, even though it was a very matter-of-fact, very practical idea. I had never thought of it that way. And I said, "Damn it, you're right." And ever since then, I've had a different view of needing to eat all of my food. And any of you who comes from kind of environment that I come from. Now, I'm black, so any of you who is black, I know you know what I'm talking about. Any of you who's over the age of 30, I know you know what I'm talking about. Because when we grew up, this was a big thing. Eat all of your food. When I was a kid, sometimes my parents would lash out at my sister and I if we didn't eat all of our food at dinner. Like, our parents would get mad at us. Like, "Hey, we made that food. Don't be scraping that food into the trash can. We didn't have a garbage disposal, so don't be throwing it in the trash can. Eat all of your food." It's a big deal. If you went over somebody else's house, especially in the black community, you went over somebody else's house and they served you a plate of food and you didn't eat it all, that was like disrespectful. Like, you might get kicked out of the house. You may be disinvited from ever coming to the house ever again. And you weren't allowed to get up from the table until you ate all of your food, even though, again, back then nobody was talking about things like portion control and how eating too much food might lead to obesity. We weren't thinking about those things back then in our communities. But we were forced to eat all of our food. It was almost like a punishment, right? Kids would be sitting at the dinner table crying because they didn't want to eat any more food, but they had to eat all of their food. Otherwise, you were being disrespectful to the person who made that food. And this is the way that we all grew up. And again, I'm over the age of 30 saying to myself and saying to another adult, I got to eat all this food because there are people starving in Africa. But me eating that last bite is not going to feed anybody who is starving in Africa. But this is a belief that I have. Until somebody smacked me with a red pill and said, "Wait a minute, does that even make sense?" So I had to unlearn some bullshit. Now, if I want to help starving people, then it's not me eating, it's how about I give the food to them? Again, further conversation for a different day. But why is this? Because sometimes we just go around modeling what we see and hear from other people without ever considering, does this make sense? Did it make sense from the beginning? Does it still make sense given the context of today? And If it does not make sense, what does make sense now? These are questions that we have to, this is the discipline that you must be willing to ask. You must be willing to put on yourself. Do you have it? This is a question that I can't answer, but you can. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to unlearn bullshit. Humor yourself and consider that those who think the opposite of you, this is to consider this, all right? This is just a mental experiment that I want to give you right here, okay? I want you to consider that I want you to think some of your strongest beliefs about any subject. And if you would just try this mental exercise, if you were to just imagine that the people who think the exact opposite of you, of some of your strongest ideas, what if they were the geniuses and you were the idiot? I know that the actual facts, quote unquote, is that you're the genius and they're the idiots, right? Because they have this dumb idea that's opposite of yours. What if they were the geniuses and you were the idiot? If you were to just pretend that, if that was possible, let me ask you this question. What is their argument? If you're really dumb and they're really smart, why are they smart? What's their argument? What is their point of view? I'm asking you this question and asking you to try this mental exercise because this is me asking you to put yourself in someone else's shoes and see things from their perspective and understand why they think the way that they think. Even though you may not change your mind based on this. I'm not telling you to change your mind based on this exercise, but I'm asking you to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Why? Because this is a sign of maturity and it's a key skill in understanding. To be able to understand another person's point of view and why they see things the way that they see things. It helps you build the skill of steel man arguing. And I talked about this in the episodes where I talked about how to disagree with another person. And this is a really important point, especially in the world that we have today with social media, where anyone can say anything and oftentimes anonymously go back and forth with people. Don't, any of you who is on the internet, don't be going back and forth with anonymous people. Often they might not even be real human beings. They're just programmed to rile you up and just keep you giving your time to social media apps, and they're just using you. That's a different conversation that I talked about in episode 1690. But in episode 1098, I told you why you need to converse with those who disagree with you. I told you in episode 1698 why being disagreeable is one of the keys to your success. In episode number 1529, how to talk to people with whom you disagree. In episode 1527, how to disagree respectfully. In those two episodes, 1529 and 1527, I introduced you to this concept of the steel man argument. Many of you have heard of the straw man argument. Straw man argument is when someone takes something that you said, then they argue something that you didn't say. They basically use sarcasm and absurd absolutes to take something that you did say, stretch it out to the furthest extent of what it could possibly mean that you did not say, then they argue against it, and then ask you to refute it. That's a straw man argument. An example of a straw man argument would be someone saying, hey, I'm not vegan because I like eating bacon cheeseburgers and filet mignon steaks. And then some person who is staunchly vegan saying something like, oh, you like eating bacon cheeseburgers and steaks? So that means you hate all animals and you just don't care about the well-being of other people and the environment. That's a straw man argument. The person who said they like bacon cheeseburgers and steaks didn't say they hated animals and didn't say they don't care about the environment, but someone took what you said and they used, that's what they call the absurd absolute, is when you take what someone else says, then you take it to the absurd far end of what it could ever possibly mean, and then you argue against that. Another example of absurd absolute is me saying something like, absurd absolute would be me saying something like, well, look, I am not against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I think that there are some things they're doing good and some things that they're not so bad at, and not so great at. And then someone who hates them says, oh, so you're just a progressive leftist who just wants to bring socialism to the world. Now, did I say that? No, but it's the absurd absolute, right? You're taking my argument and taking it as far as it could possibly be taken out of context and then arguing against it. That's an absurd absolute. And if you use social media, maybe you see people doing this. Maybe you do it. Maybe some people in your family do it. But this is a sign of the intellectual bankruptcy. Is also a strong sign of immaturity when people take things to the absurd absolute, and it's a straw man. It's a form of a straw man argument. What I'm asking you to do is develop your ability to do steel man arguments, which is the opposite of a straw man argument. What's a steel man argument? Is when you take someone's point of view and you can actually make their argument better than they can. You understand their point better than they do. And when you can steel man someone's point of view, they will be willing to listen to you, they will respect you, and you can have an intelligent, informed conversation with that person. Unfortunately, these people who can do steel man arguments are a rare breed. Often they're not super duper active on social media. They definitely do not get promoted by the social media apps, because people who can do steel man arguments, these people are not conducive to arguments. They're not conducive to things going viral, and usually things that go viral are things that are negative. They get people mad. So steel man arguments don't get people mad. Straw man arguments get people mad, and the straw man arguments are a symptom of people being angry. So social media doesn't really like steel man arguing because it calms people down. So people who are good at steel man arguing, you have to go look for them. People who are good at straw man arguing, you don't have to look for them. They will come find you. Just offer an opinion about any subject, they'll come find you. The steel man, you got to go look around for these people. A steel man argument would be, let's take the same example. If I say, hey, I know you're vegan, but I'm not because I like eating bacon cheeseburgers and steaks. A person with good steel man skills would say, okay, I understand what you're saying, and I don't think that you hate animals or anything like that, but you do enjoy bacon cheeseburgers, you enjoy the taste of bacon and the taste of steak. I completely understand that. I also would think that you do care about the future of the environment, and you care about animal welfare and just the overall ecosystem of the planet Earth, as well as you liking to eat what you like to eat, and you just not wanting to be strict as a vegan. I mean, is that accurate? Usually people will say, yes, that is accurate. Now, what are you doing? You're positioning that person as reasonable. You're positioning them as smart. You're positioning them as, you're taking their point. You're saying it in your own words. So you're not just mimicking exactly what they said. You're not miming what they said or copying what they said, but you're putting their position. You're even stating it even more clearly than they did. You're saying it in your own words. You're saying it back to them and asking them, did I get it right? And they should answer, yes, that is right. Yes, that's correct. That's a steel man argument. Now, usually you might need a little bit more context to be able to say those things that I said. I was drawing that based off a bunch of assumptions, but a steel man argument means you can put yourself in the shoes of another person with whom you disagree and make their argument just as well as they can, in your own words, in such a way that when you say it to them, they agree with you. That's a steel man argument. Not you agree with you, they agree with you. So when you're steel manning someone's point, you say what they said in your words and then ask them to verify, and they say yes. If you have not ever done that before, that means you've never done a steel man argument. Most people never even heard of a steel man argument, but most of us are familiar with straw manning, even if we never called it that before. So what I'm asking you to do here in point number 2, we're talking about unlearning bullshit. Consider that people who think opposite of you are just as smart, if not smarter than you are. From that perspective, what's their point? What are the strongest points of their argument? Put yourself in their shoes and learn how to steel man their point. Know their point of view better than them. Make their argument better than they can. Maybe, just maybe here, you'll discover that you believe in your point even stronger based on the fact that now you understand theirs. But you might also discover that the other side has some substance to their point of view as well. And maybe they're a little bit smarter than you're giving them credit for. And maybe you're not as smart as you give yourself credit for when you learn to see things from other people's perspective. But if you're not mature enough to do this, and I know many people who are old enough to do it, but they're not mature enough to do it, then you're going to be stuck with your own bullshit in your mind that you've always believed up to this point. But that is also your choice. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to unlearn bullshit. Look at life from the perspective of learning as opposed to the perspective of judging. This is a big one right here. Now, when you are going about your life, you can look at things from the perspective of, I already know everything that's going on, and I'm just looking at things from, all right, how does this measure up to what I believe? Or you look at the exact same thing and say, All right, what's new here? What am I not noticing here? What do I see here? What questions can I ask? What are some things that I can't really draw a judgment on because I don't have enough information on yet? Those are two different perspectives from the exact same situations. The situation being life. Are you looking at life from a perspective of I already know or I'm open to learning? Some people call this the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. People who are in a growth mindset are open to learning. In order to be open to learning, you have to accept that you don't know everything. And to accept that you don't know everything means that maybe some of the things that you do know are not as correct as you thought they were. Those are symptoms of a growth mindset. Symptoms of a fixed mindset is you're looking at everything from a perspective of judgment. Okay, you got your set of beliefs, you walk into the room with your beliefs, and anything that does not jibe with your beliefs, you're thinking you're already looking at it in a negative light because it's not going along with what you already believe to be true. And you're not open to hearing anything that may conflict with what you believe to be true. How many people do you know who have fixed mindsets versus growth mindsets? And just to be clear here, and this is something I say all the time on this show, for those of you who are new, there is no neutral. You either have a fixed mindset, meaning you know what you know and you're not open to learning anything, or you have a growth mindset. You know some things, but you also accept the fact that the things that you know might not be as true as you think they are. Therefore, if someone can show you something different, maybe you'll change your mind. I remember I was talking to this woman, this is about 10 years ago. I was talking to this woman who was saying, you shouldn't use the microwave so much. Now, at that time, I was a card-carrying member of the Microwave Users Association. I use the microwave all the time. I use the microwave to heat up my food. Why use the toaster oven? It takes too long. I'll use the microwave. Why take 10 minutes to heat up the food when I can take 30 seconds? I mean, it was just about expediency, fast, speed, time is money, right? And this woman said to me, all right, well, look, when you use the microwave, you see those little holes in the side of the microwave? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, what do you think that's for? And I said, well, I don't quite know. And then she said, well, microwave is a compound word for two different things, right? And I said, yes, it is. She said, all right, what are the two words? I said, well, micro and waves. She said, what kind of waves are they? I said, well, it's like radiation. She said, all right, well, is radiation a good thing to eat? And she wasn't really asking, it was kind of a rhetorical question. When I thought about it, I said, okay, you know what? That actually kind of makes a little bit of sense. And from that, she didn't give me a conclusion. She didn't tell me what I should think. She didn't tell me what I should do. But by opening my mind with some questions and forcing that red pill down my throat, so to speak, she changed my mind about the way that I thought about a microwave. We got a microwave here. I don't think we have used this microwave in maybe 3 times in 2 years. Why? Because it changed my perspective on just an idea that I had all the way up to this point. Now, I come from an era, I remember when microwaves kind of sort of first came out. I don't know if they came out when I was alive, but I remember when having a microwave was a big deal. You got a microwave in your house, it was like, oh my God, we ain't got to put things in the oven anymore. We can cook it in like 2 minutes instead of cooking it in 45. That was a big deal, being able to put things in a microwave. But then, as I got new information, again, when I got this red pill forced upon me, I changed the way that I was thinking. So I was willing to listen to what this person said because they were able to communicate with me on a level that I can understand. Instead of just saying, well, the microwave's wrong. Don't use the microwave. The microwave's wrong. It's bad. It's going to kill you. If you're pregnant, the microwave's going to kill the baby. All right, those are the way that some people would try to say things. That didn't really work on me because I knew it was hyperbolic. And some people, you can communicate with them in those ways and it'll get the point across. But one of the key skills of being able to level with a person and to steel man their point is you got to be able to communicate in their language. And I talked about this in the episode where I talked about different languages, being able to speak different languages within the language. And that was episode number 1251. Learn to speak multiple languages within the language, meaning even if English is the only language that you speak, you can't speak English to every person the exact same way because some people need to speak on a more emotional tone. Some people need to speak more about the fun of things. Some people you need to give all the details and information. Some people you need to be very direct and clear with. Some people you need to be more indirect and let them figure it out on their own. And that's a skill. That is a skill of communication, is learning how to communicate with people on their level. Not on your level, on their level. When you can look at life from a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and you stop judging, because people who are judging have already decided what things are, and they just weigh everything against what they've already decided. When you're in a growth mindset, you're open to seeing things in a new way. Growth mindset people ask questions, not so that they can attack, but so they can understand. And in the process of doing that, they may realize that what they thought they knew might be some bullshit. And understand that growth mindset people usually want to have conversations with other growth mindset people so that they can learn. And if a growth mindset person comes across someone who has a fixed mindset, it may be hard for them to learn from that person, because the fixed mindset person is of the mentality that everything they think must absolutely be right. But none of us is batting 100% when it comes to our ideas. Every one of us has some bullshit in our minds right now we're not even aware of. But this is why the law of association is the law of association. This is why we have to be around other people in this episode 1880, the law of association, who have growth mindsets so that we can exchange ideas. They call this the marketplace of ideas, exchanging ideas with each other, challenging each other in these ideas so that we can all get better. I remember when I was in middle school, I played chess. I was on the chess team. And we would have chess practice like a few days a week, and our teacher, this guy named Mr. Shutt, he was like this master chess teacher, master chess player, and we would all just gather around in that room down in the basement of the middle school, and we would just play chess against each other and go over different openings and different closings and what would you do in certain situations, and what were we doing? We were sharpening each other's swords by challenging each other, but nobody had the mentality that they knew everything about chess. Maybe the teacher, maybe I guess he was, call him the coach. Maybe he had the idea that he probably knew more than everybody else in that room, and he probably did. Probably knew 100 times more than everybody else in the room, but he didn't walk around like, all right, my idea is my idea, and you have to do it. He would ask us questions. He would challenge us. He would show us things and say, all right, you see that? You understand this? This is the way I would do it. This is how I would open it. Or you could do this. He would leave us with things to let us think about it. And that's a growth mindset, and that's how you nurture growth mindsets in other people. So growth mindset people usually work well with other growth mindset people. Growth mindset people and fixed mindset people don't usually do too well together when it comes to the exchange of ideas, because fixed mindset people aren't willing to change anything, whereas growth mindset people are. And so sometimes a fixed mindset person comes across a growth mindset person, and they think if they just say what they're going to say often enough that people are just going to adopt their ideas. But then when those ideas get questioned, because growth mindset people will always question, they'll always challenge, they'll always want to know why, they always want to understand. Fixed mindset people get frustrated. Well, why don't you just accept it? Why don't you just take it? Well, I just know what I know. I just know. I'm not interested in learning anything else. I'm not interested in questioning it. I'm not interested in explaining it. Any of you, again, has any of you come across a person who fits this description? I remember in 2013, I went to dinner with a friend who was eating clean. That's the way she described her eating clean, because I just noticed how she ordered her food. And I was like, well, why'd you order it like that? And she said, well, yeah, I'm into clean eating. And this is 2013. So I had heard of clean eating, but I didn't really know anything about it. At that time, I ate whatever I wanted. I'm in the middle of my professional athlete career. I work out every day. I got muscles. I'm in great shape. I have no body fat. I didn't care what I ate, whatever I wanted, whenever I felt like it. And when she started talking about eating clean, I started asking her questions while we're sitting there at dinner. And it got around to the topic of vegetarianism and clean eating. And I started asking her, I said, all right, I get the concept of vegetarianism and clean eating. And she explained to me why she ate clean and all this stuff. But I'm like, well, look, I'm an athlete. I'm interested in that stuff, but I'm an athlete. How can I eat clean and still be an athlete? I got muscles. I can't have muscles and be vegetarian. If I'm vegetarian, then I'm gonna be this skinny little wafy person walking around with a yoga mat strapped to my back. And how am I gonna be banging in the paint on a basketball court without eating meat? And she helped me. She answered the question. She clearly was not the first time someone asked her the question. She helped me unlearn some of the bullshit that I had in my mind, such as the belief that you have to eat animal meat in order to have muscles and play sports. The person you're listening to right now, I am vegan. 98% of the food that I eat is vegan food. I get my vegan meals delivered. I do eat meat when I want to. Well, if I'm traveling or if I'm out somewhere, or sometimes on the weekends I'll eat meat. But most of the food that I eat is vegan food. So I realized in that conversation with her, and then she sent me some links, she sent me some information to look at, and she even gave me some guidelines on how to make my transition over, that I did not need to eat animal meat in order to have muscles. That was a false belief that many people still to this day think are true. I meet people to this very day who say to me, there was someone in a mastermind group that I'm a part of, and I mentioned that I was vegan. They didn't know that. And they were like, wait, how are you vegan? You're an athlete and you work out and you have muscles. And I started to explain to them the same thing someone explained to me in 2013, in that it's not what we think it is. So it's very interesting that sometimes information is slow to get around to everybody out there. So I learned it. The reason I was able to learn it, because I was willing to learn it, because I was willing to ask questions. And this person who was in my mastermind who asked me the questions, I was able to share it with them because they were willing to learn and they were willing to ask questions. And this is, again, the growth mindset. People who are growth mindset individuals, again, they tend to attract each other to each other because they are always asking questions, they're always challenging, they're always probing, they're always trying to find out. And understand that fixed mindset people, as I said, they don't like being challenged, probed, and questioned about their beliefs, because then they'll have to explain them. And what the truth is about a lot of fixed mindset people is that they can't explain their beliefs because they just always had them. They don't even know where they got them from, but they expect everybody else to adopt them. And then they cannot understand, they can't fathom that someone else could possibly have a different belief. Again, ask yourself as we go into our recap, how many people do you know who fit either description? Today's topic is how to unlearn bullshit. I promise you that you do have some bullshit that's been given to you in your life. Maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're not, but I'm gonna help you start identifying it and hopefully subsequently flushing it out of your system. Point number one, here's the discipline. When a verifiable, contradictory truth or question smacks you in the face, ask yourself, where did you get your original belief? So when someone comes to you with a belief that goes completely against what you believe, ask yourself, where did you get your original belief from? Because you see where the other belief's coming from, this person in front of you, where'd you get your belief from? If you can back up your belief with some logical argument that makes sense, do so. But if you can't, maybe the original belief was some bullshit. Just like the woman who was cutting the ends off the ham. Her husband said, why are you doing that? She said, my mom did it. They called her mom. The mom said, my mom did it. They called the grandma. The grandma said, well, my stove was too small. But nobody else's stove was too small, but they were still following it. It was some bullshit that they had picked up and never even questioned in the first place. This is what many of us do. Point number two, humor yourself and consider that those who think opposite of you, maybe they're the smart ones and you're the dummy. Just pretend. If it was possible, what is their argument? Learn how to steel man another person's point. In other words, make their point just as well as they did, if not better, in your own words, and let them verify that you have it right. When you can verify that you understand another person's point, guess what? Magic wand has been waved. They'll be willing to listen to you. Imagine it. Point number three, look at life from a perspective of learning as opposed to judging, i.e. a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. It changes everything, and these people are usually attracted to each other. When you are judging, you have already decided what things are and simply weighing everything against what you have already decided. Fixed mindset people can only hang with other fixed mindset people who have the exact same fixed mindsets. Growth mindset people can hang with other growth mindset people, even though they may have completely different ideas, because they can have open, honest, intellectual, and respectful conversations even when they completely disagree on a point, because they are both willing to learn and they are both willing to share. Whereas fixed mindset people are not willing to learn and share. They can only talk to people who already agree with them. Because if you put two fixed mindset people in a room who both have different fixed mindsets, all right, that's when we get war, conflict, fights, arguments, and basically a lot of the comment sections of social media. So you can unlearn bullshit when you have a growth mindset and you're willing to ask questions and willing to learn, and when you come across other people who are similar. This is why the law of association from episode 1880 is so important. Text me at number 385-384-6894. Tell me the best thing you got from this here today. What are you going to do different? Work on your game. Dre all day.